The tool that I'm going to be referring to, the CDC Plus representative tool, this is a Delmarva tool that was developed with the CDC Plus Central Program Office and staff in that office. It has 14 standards. That means there's 14 questions or pieces of information that we're looking at. It is scored simply with a yes, no, or a not applicable. In CDC in particular, you can have some standards. For example, there's a standard that relates to cash and whether you have your cash receipt logs and you're keeping that information. If you happen to be a representative where there's no cash listed on your purchasing plan, so you don't manage cash, it would be NA. You wouldn't be looking for a cash receipt log unless it's identified on your purchasing plan and it's something that you have. So for each of the standards, we're going to look to see, do you have the documentation available, which is a yes? Is it not there, or are there key pieces or critical pieces of that documentation not included, which could mean a no? Or is it a standard that doesn't apply to you and your purchasing plan and the setup that you have on CDC Plus? And that would be an NA. The CDC Plus participant notebook page reference is on the tool with each of our standards. Now you know as well as anyone that they do periodically update the CDC Plus participant notebook. They do updates, they typically let you know out in your CDC Connections newsletter and they post it online. So, you know, our page references are on there, but we sometimes need to pay attention to make sure we update those if the notebook has changed. But the references will at least get you to the section in the notebook that we're looking for that particular standard. What we're going to do today, which I think will be quite helpful, and we did this in 3 parts of the state, and the feedback had been really positive from all the participants that came in person to attend this training, is we're going to review each standard and provide a handout. So again, I'm going to reference these handouts showing a sample of that documentation. And I really need to emphasize the word sample. It was really developed, Rhonda Sloan was a key part. She's one of the trainers with the CDC Plus program. She put together all these sample documentations for us. So as we talk about each standard, you'll be able to look and see this is what this might look like. Another key part to remember is that the CDC program has been around for a while. Some of these forms have changed a little bit. Some have gotten updated. The form that you have might look a little different from the sample that we're using. As long as the same key pieces of information are in there, you're okay. If you have any questions at this point and you're looking at your information and thinking, I'm not sure about this, I'll provide for you our website, our contact information, but even more importantly, the website for the CDC Plus program. And you can go on there and view any questions and look at their documentation and maybe get contact information. You'll always have your consultant to ask questions to, your area liaison, and then Delmarva's contact information will be there as well. So let's begin with standard number 1. Standard number 1 is pretty straightforward. We're looking for a completed and signed participant representative agreement, and that's available for review. And that is handout number 3 that you'll see with those attachments. The one that we have here, I think, is one of the more current ones, but this is a form that's been around from the very beginning. If you had it signed when you started the program, it's still signed. The participant and the representative are still the same 2 people. That form that you have is perfectly acceptable. Whatever it is, the key part is that you have it and that it's signed. If you can't find that particular form, any of this documentation, you'll see samples for us, but on that CDC website that I'm going to refer you to at the end of the presentation, they have all the blank forms that you can download and help make sure you locate the documentation that you need. Standard number 2, I used this just a minute, I referenced this in an example. Receipts and detailed monthly logs for cash purchases are available for review. If you happen to have cash on your purchasing plan, and that means that you have a certain amount of cash each month that you're using in your budget, you need to maintain a log. Handout number 4 is an example of what that log would look like. And the key part that you need to remember is that you have on one side of the handout's 2 pages. It has the log. The log includes the month, the amount of the cash, who was the vendor. Was it that you purchased something at Kmart or Walmart, maybe in the form of wipes or diapers, perhaps, and then it has what was purchased in detail, the date of the receipt is on there, the service code for each of the purchases that you're making. It relates to a service code on your purchasing plan. So in the example that we have for handout number 4, we see that in March 2009, there was $100 in cash used for Kmart, Winn-Dixie, and Walmart, where they bought 2 boxes of wipes, some gluten-free bread, and 3 boxes of diapers. These service codes are on here. It was the dollar amount that included tax, and then the cash on hand at the end of the month after you process that receipt. So that's what needs to be in the log. The other part of information that you need to have is you need to keep the actual receipts. So with each of your logs, you want to attach the receipts that go with that log, and the reviewer is going to look through each of the receipts and see if it matches the information that's on your log. So if you have a receipt from Kmart for $23.94, they're going to look in your log to see does that match with what you have on your log. So that's what we're looking for when we look at the cash receipt information. And again, only applicable if you happen to be a representative and a participant who has cash on your purchasing plan. If you don't, the reviewer would just simply score this as NA, and we would move on to standard number 3. Now, standard number 3 is signed and approved timesheets for all directly hired employees are available for review. If on the CDC program you have directly hired employees, and that is probably one of the most common forms of having services through the CDC Plus, is you hire people to provide certain services for you. You as a representative are essentially running a business in this process. You've hired these employees, and each of them have a timesheet that needs to be completed. The timesheets with CDC Plus are weekly. You have to complete the timesheet every week. Now, the way the program is designed, it allows you to fill out a paper timesheet, but you call in your information on the timesheet into the system with the fiscal agent, which is APD up in Tallahassee. So you phone in, if you will, or send in each of the hours for your employees. The key part that we're finding when we go out to get timesheets for people is a couple of things are tripping folks up. One is they're not printing their timesheets. They say they have them on their computer, or they say they phoned them in, but they're not printing them. They're just keeping them on the computer. This is a key requirement, that the documentation for the timesheet, it has to be printed every week. It needs to be signed by the participant representative and the employee. So all that information has to be on here. And you can see when you look at handout number 5, all the key pieces that have to be part of that timesheet. So we're going to look for timesheets to cover what we reference as the whole period of review. So one of the questions I got when I was out in training quite a bit was, well, how far are you going back, and what's the period of review? And that would be, we go back the previous 12 months. So if we're out in your home and reviewing your documentation in January of 2011, we're going to look at your documentation going back to January 2010 through December 2010. It's going to be the previous 12 months for whatever month that your review is occurring in. So if we're out there, we're going to be looking for timesheets for that whole review period. If you happen to be someone who has quite a few directly hired employees, we're looking essentially at 52 timesheets, because timesheets are done on a weekly basis. If you have any concerns or questions about how you're keeping your timesheets or what you're doing, again, I refer you to the CDC notebook, I refer you to the CDC website, or call somebody and ask questions. But this is a very key element that we're looking for. And again, the biggest question that we came up with is folks said, well, I'm not printing the timesheets, I have them in my computer. You do have to print them, and they do have to be signed. This is a requirement for that particular standard that we're looking for. If on the off chance you're a CDC rep who doesn't have any directly hired employees, you only work with vendors or independent contractors, then you're not going to have any timesheets, and it would be an NA. But that's pretty rare. Almost everyone that we come across usually is using some sort of directly hired employee for the work that they're doing. Okay, the next one that we have that we look at is standard number 4, and again this matches up to handout number 6. And I think I forgot, as I went through the handouts, one of the key handouts that I had in here was handout number 2, which is our tool, specifically our tool, with the 14 elements in there. So the easiest thing for you to do as you're going through this video and you're looking at the information is have handout number 2, which is the Delmarva review tool, available to you. And as I go through each of the standouts, you'll see the handout that applies to that. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. So handout number 6, signed and approved invoices for vendor payments are available for review. If you have if you have a purchasing plan and you are using vendors, you need to have the invoices for those vendors. Handout number 6 uses an example of Isabel Independent Contractor. And in this example, they had 2 dates of service. It has the total dollar amount that's on there and the total amount that was due, which is $168. What you're doing as a representative is you're actually reviewing this receipt, and you're writing right on the bottom, goods and services received as shown. You're putting your date, the ID number, the name of the participant that you're representing, or if you're your own participant, your own representative, you're putting your name, and you're signing it. That signature means, yes, I've looked at this bill, I reviewed the invoices, it is the goods and services that I received, it's for the correct dollar amount, it is from the correct contractor, and it's good to go. And that's what we're looking for. Any of these that you have for that whole 12-month period of review will need to be on hand for any of your vendor payments. And handout number 6 is again an example. Some of these might look a little bit different, but you want to make sure that you have clearly who the contractor was, what the date of service was, what were the dollar amounts. You reviewed it and you're showing us that you did that by writing goods and services received as shown, you're dating it, and you're signing it, and you're putting the participant in a name on there. So that's how you would do that particular invoice. Standard number 5 is signed and approved receipts and a statement of goods and services are reviewed. So receipts, these would be things that you've purchased and that you're looking for reimbursement for. So in the example that we have for handout number 7, this participant, Johnny Sample, who's our sample name, went to Gulf Coast Dentist. He had 2 fillings and some x-rays. It cost $152. The representative must have paid cash. There's no other money due, so it has a 0 balance, which we're looking for. And then on the bottom, as a representative, you're writing goods and services received as shown, you're dating it, you're putting the participant name on there, and you're signing it. Very similar to the vendor invoices. The difference is vendor are people that you're purchasing services from. Invoice receipts are things that you've gone out and purchased and now you're asking for reimbursement for. The cash, with that, you're getting the cash up. Now we're going to talk about standard number 6. This would be complete employee packets for all directly hired employees are available for review. If you look at your handouts, it is handout number 8, and there's a couple of pieces of paper that go to make up a complete employee packet. So for any of the directly hired employees that you have, if you have 3 directly hired employees, we're going to look for an employee packet for each of those employees. One of the forms that needs to be on there is the employee information form, and this is a CDC Plus form that you can get off of their website. In the sample form that's provided, all the information is filled in. The representative has signed it on the bottom, and the employee signature is on there as well. So again, you're having the representative sign, and you're having the employee sign, and you're filling out all the pieces of information. This would be examples of sometimes folks have the documentation, but it's not signed, or it's not all filled out. When we're reviewing stuff, we're looking, A, that it's there and that it's complete. Any piece of information that's missing, that's required, would require that the reviewer is going to score that particular standard as a not met or as a no. And we have reasons that come in a drop-down box in our application that will identify what was it about that piece of paper. Was it that you didn't have a copy of it, that it wasn't signed, or there was some key pieces of information that was not filled out. So as we talk about any of this documentation, I just really want to emphasize again, it's A, that you have it, and B, that it's complete, and if signatures are required, that they're signed. So for the employee information, you have the employee information form. There's a W-4 form that you need to have for each of your employees that goes through, and that's the Employees Withholding Allowance Certificate. And there is a government I-9 form, which is an Employment Eligibility Verification form. Those are the 3 pieces of paper that make up an employee packet. So those are the 3 pieces of paper that we're looking for. If you're looking through your employee packets now and checking out this video and seeing if you have everything, maybe you're missing 1 or 2 or all of them, again, look at the examples, go to the CDC website, ask questions where you need to, and help get yourself in order so that you're prepared if you happen to get